Hi, it's Danny from Danny Sports Bar here in Pattaya, looking ahead at the week in the world of sports. And this is an interesting week, a big week, because we're coming to the end of the winter seasons in Europe. The football, rugby seasons. We'll focus first on football. We've got the final day of the Premier League coming up this Sunday. We don't yet know how significant it's going to be. Arsenal, as I'm speaking here, beat Burnley last night, and that means Arsenal just need 3 points to clinch the title. Actually, only two, really. But what they need is what they may get that as early as tonight if Manchester City don't win against Bournemouth. And then in that case, the title will be decided before the final day. Same with the relegation battle. It could go to the final day, but if Tottenham Hotspur get even 1 point, if they get a draw or a win tonight away to Chelsea, then the relegation fight would be over and West Ham United would go to the championship next year. No matter what, there will be some places to play for this weekend. In fact, if Bournemouth were to beat Manchester City tonight, they could still take Liverpool's spot as the fifth team in the Premier League and what could possibly, likely, be the last Champions League place. So there will be some excitement on Sunday. We don't yet know what games will bring that excitement, but with 10 games all starting at once and with so many different things to play for in the Premier League, rest assured there will be something to watch. And if you have a favorite team, it's your last chance to see them play, in most cases, a meaningful game until August. Of course, for Crystal Palace, there will still be the Conference League final. For Arsenal, still the Champions League final, those both next week. But speaking of those, the first of the three European trophies is tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Aston Villa will be playing Freiburg from Germany, playing in Istanbul for the Europa League Championship. Aston Villa haven't won a European Championship in a long time. They were the European Cup winners before the Champions League even existed, but they haven't won anything this big in an awful long time. So this is a big, big game for Aston Villa. I know people are thinking right now, because of the way things have gone the last few years, that these competitions, maybe not so much the Champions League, but the Europa League and the Conference League, are becoming dominated by the Premier League teams because there's just so much more money in the Premier League and the depth of the Premier League. And certainly Aston Villa in one of the semifinals this year played Nottingham Forest. In the final last year, of course, Tottenham Hotspur beat Manchester United, two English teams in the final. And in the Conference League, it's going to be Crystal Palace playing Rayo Vallecano of Spain. That will be next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. So anyway, a lot going on with those competitions. There's also some cup finals to be played. Of course, we had the FA Cup final this past weekend at Wembley with Manchester City beating Chelsea. But this week, we'll have the Scottish Cup final up at Hampden Park in Glasgow with Celtic playing Dunfermline. Celtic last week having won the league for yet another time. They'll be now going for yet another Scottish Cup. Also, the German Cup final in Berlin, Bayern Munich against Stuttgart. Both those games are on Saturday. Also on Saturday, what is sometimes called the richest game in world football. And the reason it's called that, it's the championship playoff. The way it works in the championship, top two teams automatically get promoted to the Premier League. This year that was Coventry and Ipswich. The next four teams, now next year it's going to be even more, but for now, still the next four teams go to a playoff. They play two semifinals, with the third place against the sixth and the fourth place against the fifth, two-legged semifinals, and it leads into one game at Wembley. And that game makes the difference of spending next year in the championship or in the Premier League. And it's such a big financial difference, which is why they call it the richest game. Now, there's controversy about this game this year. Hull City will be playing probably Southampton. But in the Southampton-Middlesbrough semifinal, there was an accusation, and it seems pretty clear that it actually did happen, that an intern or somebody on the Southampton staff went to a Middlesbrough training session before they played with the camera, with the phone camera, and took pictures, video, whatever, of the training session. Of course, you're not supposed to do that. Middlesbrough are saying that Southampton should be kicked out. There's supposed to be later on today a decision from a disciplinary panel deciding what to happen with Southampton. We'll see. As far as we know, this game is going to go ahead Saturday at 10:30. Presumably, it will be Hull against Southampton. Maybe they'll change and be Hull against Middlesbrough. We'll see. But it's a big game. There's also the League Two playoff final coming up and the League One playoff final. Those are coming up also. But the championship one is the one it tends to get people carrying on. So that's football for this week. Also in rugby, there are the two cup finals, the Challenge Cup and the Champions Cup, and they play them on the same weekend. European rugby does, and the one game, both games this year, as it turns out, feature an Irish team against a French team, and so Ulster will be playing in the first game on Friday, late night Friday, the Champions Cup, which is on Saturday night. Earlier on, that will be Bordeaux Begla playing against Leinster. That's theoretically like the Champions League of European rugby. And of course, as we talked about, the Champions League final is a week from Saturday in football. Also this weekend, Formula One returns. It's been so long. We had the one race in Miami, and that's the only race we've had since March. It feels like forever that Formula One, we've barely had it. We have a race this weekend. Unfortunately for us, it's in Montreal, and that means a 3 a.m. Sunday start for the Grand Prix. It is a sprint race weekend, though, and that means there will be a sprint race, and that's at 11 p.m. on Saturday. So we will have that. If you don't want to stay up real late on Sunday for the Grand Prix, you can at least see the same cars on the sprint race at 11 p.m. on Saturday. Other things going on this week, of course, there's still baseball. We'll go towards Memorial Day in the U.S. We've got the AFL and NRL going on in Australia. Certainly interesting stories there. The IIHF, International Ice Hockey Federation, World Championships going on in Switzerland all through this week and into next week. And then tennis, the French Open, starts on Sunday at Roland Garros in Paris. 2 weeks, they just like I think the Australian Open did. This is the second major of the year, and rather than start on Monday, which has been for many of the majors the first day, they start on the Sunday and go through two weeks after that to the Sunday first weekend in June when they're going to have the men's final. But that starts just the first round. That'll start Sunday afternoon. So plenty going on. We've got so much happening this month, and of course going into next month with the World Cup. One last thing that doesn't involve directly sports, although I'll get to it, is Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, the 27th. We're having a big party, an important party for us here at Danny's. My wife Lex's birthday. We're celebrating it on that 27th. And that day, you might know, if you're Australian or even if you follow rugby league, is the day of the first State of Origin game, which will be at 5 p.m. Don't worry, we will still have that game with sound at 5 o'clock or just after 5. Those tend to start a little bit past the time they announce. But we'll have that game with sound, and we'll go right into our party with plenty of free food and music and all the usual fun. You've been to one of our parties, you know what it's like. I hope you come see us for this one, and I hope you come see us this week for all the sports at Danny's.